Have you ever had a connection where you felt like you had to walk on eggshells? You had to tiptoe around a person's feelings, you had to shrink for their comfort, and you were constantly second guessing yourself because you felt something off, but there wasn't enough evidence that something was off. But that constant state of hypervigilance doesn't just live in our minds, it actually lives in our bodies. In this episode, I am going to discuss how distancing myself from ambivalent connections actually transformed my nervous system.
You are listening to Abundance Hack Podcast, where we talk about alchemy, transmuting life's challenges into gold. We talk about embodiment, being all of who we are in our fullness and not shrinking for the comfort of others. That is living an abundant life.
Hey, lovers. As we come to an end on season 5, I've really been thinking about what I wanted to say and express these last few episodes. And when I think about my healing journey, one of the things that has made a huge difference in my journey, allowing me to really ground into who I am, what I stand for, my boundaries, my values, my needs, my desires, is distancing myself from ambivalent connections. Now, yes, I've done years of therapy, inner work, sound therapy, but what I've realized is when I distance myself from ambivalent connections, I had so much more energy to put towards listening to my inner wisdom, trusting myself more, paying attention to that full body yes, listening to my inner alarm and trusting it more, trusting myself, having that deep inner trust. That's a huge thing. A lot of people go through the world not trusting themselves, not knowing who they are, what they want, what they desire, what they need. And so the biggest thing that I can contribute to it is distancing myself from connections that made me second guess myself, gaslight myself, walk on eggshells, tiptoe around people's feelings, or shrink for their comfort. And when I stopped doing that, I was able to trust myself more. And it also helped me tune into energy on a whole other level. There's hypervigilance where you scan the room to see if it's safe. You scan the room to see who you need to be in that room versus being who you are, being grounded in who you are, and also feeling the energy in the room, but not for you to shrink or shift or fawn, but for you to just trust, if this environment is aligned or not. It's a subtle nuance, but what this has created was more space for creativity, for inner trust, inner wisdom, for me to be able to see the world through a healthier perspective. Because when you're around people that make you second guess yourself, then you start to question different things out in the world. But when you can be really grounded in who you are, your inner trust, your inner peace, then you have more clarity in the world. And that has been a game changer for me. So when I say ambivalent connection, this could be romantic, this can be family, this can be friends, this can even be business. So what I mean by this is you are constantly in a state of wondering if the person actually likes you or actually loves you. And you feel like you have to walk on eggshells, you have to tiptoe around their feelings. You pick up on things maybe in their tone or just energetically, intuitively, but then you gaslight yourself and you take blame for it rather than owning that, yeah, this felt off, right? And it's this constant hypervigilance that keeps your nervous system in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Most people are familiar with fight, flight, or freeze, but fawn is actually a nervous system state where you are in this constant people-pleasing state. You people please and you shift or shrink for love, acceptance, to be liked, to be of value, and sometimes even just for safety. So it's not you just being who you are, it's you performing for safety, connection, to be liked, to be accepted. So a lot of people live in that space. It's just how they are. And the thing about that is, if we are in a constant state of fawning, we don't know who we truly are, because you're so used to adapting, assimilating, molding to others that you don't know what you truly want. You don't know what you truly need. We minimize our own needs for the comfort of others. I don't want to be too much trouble. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to seem high maintenance. I don't want to be too much. So we minimize what we actually need for the comfort of others. That is self-abandoning. So when I started distancing myself from ambivalent connections, it allowed me to stop self-abandoning and to be more self-loyal. Now, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I need, and I can communicate that, and I don't hold back out of fear of rejection or abandonment. I have unwavering inner trust. That inner voice, I don't question it anymore. When something feels off, I know it feels off. And I have my own little framework and tools that I can use, because, we all have days, right? So if I'm having a day and I'm like, did I just pick up on something, or am I just off? Now, it's one thing to gaslight yourself and just always think that it's your fault, versus having a framework to check in. Is this a story that I'm telling myself, or is this actually my experience? What part of myself was triggered or activated in this situation? So having frameworks to really check in is powerful, because, we live in a very, I was going to say we live in a very narcissistic society, but I actually want to reframe that and say we live in a very emotionally immature society, because the difference between someone who is actually a narcissist and someone who's emotionally immature is that narcissists don't actually care. And the thing about the people that I feel I've distanced myself from, I believe they care. I believe they love me, but they may not have the emotional intelligence and the emotional maturity to have the uncomfortable conversation, to really lean in and peel the layers back to deepen our bond, so it stayed surface level. Where one thing that I know that I crave is depth, and also safety, where I know if I'm not performing, if I'm not on, if I'm not carrying the emotional labor of the connection, it's not going to come to an end. And that's not something I had a lot of. I had to tiptoe, I had to shrink, I had to walk on eggshells in these connections, and that doesn't create emotional safety. That creates performance. We're already in a society where we have to perform for social media, we have to perform at work. It's a constant performance. And so I believe we need connections in our lives where we can take the mask off, let our guard down, not perform, and just be, simply be, to repair and regulate our nervous system. And a lot of people don't have that, which I believe is contributing to the anxiety, to the burnout, to the chronic stress, to the autoimmune diseases and the cancers we're constantly on as a society. It's exhausting. It is exhausting. So when I thought about my inner circle and what I really needed, I needed people that I didn't have to perform for or walk on eggshells for, because I was working on repairing my nervous system. And the next thing I want to talk about is how we tend to gaslight ourselves. So I went through Brene Brown's Dare to Lead training, which talks a lot about empathy, compassion, vulnerability. When I went through this cohort with my business therapist, I looked around at my life and I said, I don't have any emotionally safe connections in my life. And the thing that I love about Brené Brown is she gives you the language to actually articulate some of the feelings. She goes through the different emotions. Sometimes if we don't do any type of self-development or therapy, we can't actually express how we feel. And so it creates a lot of miscommunication and disconnect. So someone can say, oh, I know that you're mad. And then you can respond and say, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, which are two very different emotions. So having the language to articulate how we feel can actually repair connections and deepen connections. So going through this program, working with my business therapist and her programs, it helped me be able to understand what emotional safety looks like for me. And then I looked around in my life and said, I don't have any connections that are emotionally safe. And I tried to go to those individuals and talk to them. And this is across the board, right? This is just, I looked at my life. I'm very intentional with my life. I looked at my life. These are the types of connections that I want in my life. And if we cannot work on this, then it's not a connection that I necessarily desire. And it's not because I didn't love the person, I didn't care about them, but I'm very intentional in the energy that I have around me, because when you're trying to do something big with your life, or not even just big, if you just want to live a healthy, happy life, we have to look at who we're surrounded by and if they're good for our nervous system. Just because we love someone doesn't mean that they're good for our nervous systems. And that's a hard truth that sometimes we have to face. And often we will choose the person over our own nervous systems. But these days, with how demanding life is and how many people are burnt out and sick and unhealthy, we have to start looking at our nervous system and how we feel in environments and connections, because our health actually depends on it. So I went to these connections and I'm like, hey, I'm going through my own healing journey, and I really would love for the connection we had to die and be rebirthed into something that feels more aligned and healthy. Some people are receptive to it and some are not. And that's okay, because that's life. You know, we sometimes grow in different directions or at different paces, but I needed emotional safety. And that is something that is important to me. And what that looks like for me is having people around me that are self-aware, that can take accountability. Because if I go to someone and say, hey, this didn't feel good, and they're like, nothing I do is ever good enough for you. You need so much. You're so extra. You're so high maintenance. That's a lot. I don't have space for that in my life anymore, unapologetically. Period. End of story. So someone that has self-awareness, can take accountability, can have an uncomfortable conversation. So uncomfortable conversations should not equal a connection being over. It should create understanding. We should have curiosity and compassion for the people that we care about. And also part of emotional intelligence is understanding the art of repair, healthy conflict resolution. When you're in connection with people, conflict will happen. It's natural, but we have to have healthy conflict resolution skills to be able to repair when conflict happens. And when you sweep things under the rug, pretend that they never happened, let enough time pass to where you're not thinking about it anymore, that is not healthy. And one of the things that I'm a huge advocate for is healthy love. Hello. Right? So I had to practice what I preach. I had to approach the people in my life and say, hey, this doesn't feel good. And I really want to get to a place to where this connection feels good. And I don't feel like I'm carrying the emotional labor or emotional weight of the connection. And then all of that energy that I used to put towards overthinking about my connections, I can then put towards creativity and my podcast and my books and my empire, my business. in addition to that, it allowed my nervous system to settle. And creating good energy in my home, and my home feels really good. My plants, my crystals, my essential oils, play the sound bowls, just making sure the vibe feels really good. So now, being in an environment where the energy feels good, when energy feels off, I can pick up on it with the quickness. And now that I've developed that inner trust, I don't second guess myself. I don't gaslight myself. So let me give you some clear examples. When someone says something and they didn't say anything bad, but it feels weird, right? It didn't create connection, it created disconnection. So let's just say I released a book and someone's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And you're like, okay, they said something good, but for some reason it feels condescending, right? But you're like, I can't really say, hey, that didn't feel good, because they could be like, I said I was proud of you. Like, how did that not feel good? But it just felt like it had this like twinge of feeling condescending. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Like belittling in a way, or like, oh, good girl, look at you go, right? So they didn't say anything bad. And these were the nuances that I couldn't really articulate until I went through Brene Brown's program, which felt so validating for me, where I'm like, because she's like, you ever walk away from a situation feeling like that felt weird, right? But they didn't say anything wrong. If someone says something crappy to you, you know they're a crappy person. They said something crappy to you and you just know it, right? But when someone says something that should be good, but it lands differently, how do you approach that? What do you do? So that's one example. It feels condescending. And when a person responds in a certain way that creates disconnect, being able to pick up on it and knowing how to approach it, right? So this is something that I've been working on throughout the years. And then the next one is when there's a twinge of jealousy or like low-key competition, right? And a lot of times people don't admit to being jealous or have competition, or your light triggers their shadow or their inadequacies or insecurities. So sometimes that happens and we feel it, even though sometimes we can't always say it. But the thing is, jealousy is a natural human emotion. Everyone has felt it. And if someone says, I'm not a jealous person, I used to say this, I'm not a jealous person, but I suppressed the things that I was actually jealous on. And throughout my journey, I've been able to say, oh, I'm jealous of this. I saw this really cool aerial studio and I was like, man, I am so jealous. I don't have an aerial studio anymore. And my aerial studio was cool, but it also, that was, I don't know, 10 years ago. So things are different now. We have like LED lights and like really fun stuff. And like this aerial studio was cool. And I'm like, man, I'm jealous. It doesn't mean that I don't want them to have a cool aerial studio. It doesn't mean that I wish anything bad on them. If anything, like I want to go because it's so cool. So when we can just admit that we're jealous, a lot of times that clears the air. When we suppress it, that's when it starts to turn into something icky, and it could feel malicious. It could feel unsafe, right? If I had a friend that said, oh, I just got back from Italy, or I'm going to Italy, I would be like, girl, I am jealous. I want to go to Italy. It doesn't mean that I hate her. It doesn't mean that I don't want her to go to Italy. It means that I want to go and be sipping Italian wine with her. And so if I could just be like, oh my God, I'm so jealous that you're going to Italy, I want to go to Italy, then that feels safe because it's out in the open. We're addressing the elephant in the room. But if I keep it to myself, or I minimize it, or I compete or compare. Oh, I went to Italy last year. Oh, I've been to Rome or Venice. Then it's like, okay, you know? So like there's a certain level of emotional intelligence that I wanted in my connections, and across the board, romantically, friendship, family, business. And when you don't have that, what it made me feel like is I'm high maintenance, I'm extra, I have high expectations, wanting emotional safety, wanting emotional intelligence, wanting to communicate with someone that has self-awareness is not extra or too much or high maintenance. That is people gaslighting us to feel like we're the problem because they don't want to do their inner work. And that is where I had to separate myself and distance myself from people that didn't want to do their inner work. If someone says, hey, I definitely didn't mean to make you feel that way, and I'm doing my own work, and I will check in and see what's coming up for me around this, and like, let's talk about it when we're both ready. That's a completely different story, right? That is a completely different story. So it's something that I've had to work really, really hard on, being able to identify within myself. I have a podcast episode where I talk about our inner alarm, how we turn our inner alarm off, especially if we had a dysfunctional childhood, if we had any dysfunctional relationship. To stay in it, we have to turn off our inner alarm. And then when we turn it back on, then it's like all these red flags and sensations that we're now feeling. And sometimes people turn it off because it's too much. We realize how much dysfunction and toxicity is actually around us. But one of the things that I specialize in, especially at my studio and working with any of my clients and mentees, is slowly turning that inner alarm back on in a way that is safe for the nervous system. If it all comes on all at one time, it's going to be overwhelming, and our nervous systems are already overstimulated as is. So sound therapy is a very gentle way to start to connect back to your intuition, connect back to that inner alarm, that inner wisdom. So when situations feel off, you know, and you don't gaslight yourself, you don't dismiss it, because I did that so many times. I'm just tripping. Or I'm the problem. I internalized people making it seem like I was the problem, which again is not healthy. I was not the problem. And me saying, hey, this made me feel some type of way, this didn't feel good. Someone expressing something didn't feel good should not be a problem, right? So I think that inner work, when you're in unhealthy environments, dysfunctional environments, toxic environments, is really hard, because you will constantly feel like you are the problem, you are the issue, you are a burden, you are asking for too much. And in order for me to really ground into who I am, what I need unapologetically, what I desire unapologetically, I had to distance myself from people that made it seem like I was too much. I was the burden. I was the problem. And when I did that, that created unwavering self-trust within me. It created confidence, courage. I don't shrink in the world anymore. And that took a lot. That took a lot for me to get to that point. And the thing is, I would not have been able to get to that point if I stayed in those connections. And I know that for some people, it's going to be really hard to distance yourself. And I don't believe in isolation. So it has to be a gradual process, because if you just go cold turkey and you have no one, that's very unhealthy. It's a mental health risk. So I don't recommend isolation, but slowly start to notice, this doesn't feel good. This drains my energy, or I feel bad after being around this person, or I have to numb to be around this person, whether it's you have to drink or you have to smoke or you have to take CBD. Like, we numb to silence our inner wisdom sometimes that says, hey, this doesn't feel good. So I want you to know that you deserve healthy connections. And that's what I had to tell myself. I deserve healthy love. When I created the Healthy Love Healing Method, it was for my own reminder. Honestly, it was what was on my heart. I felt like I came here to share this message with the world, probably because I needed the message myself. Telling myself this every single day, saying it every single day to clients, on podcasts, on meditations, you are worthy of healthy love. It really started to sink in. And then I started to see how many connections weren't actually healthy. And if someone wanted to be in my life and they're like, okay, let's do the work. Let's figure out how to make this healthy. Let's have the conversation about the things that we feel that we can't really articulate. And we may fumble through those conversations. They may be hella uncomfortable, but sometimes that is what it takes to cultivate that deeper connection that feels safe, to know that I'm going to tell you how I feel and you may not like it, but know that I love you and I want you in my life and I want to get it all out in the open so we feel more comfortable around each other, and you know that I'm not going anywhere, and actually mean it. People will say, I'm not going anywhere, and then disappear. You know, people will say, oh, I love you. Oh my God. Hey, friend. But then disappear. And I know we're all dealing with our own stuff, but connections require commitment and dedication and energy. And if you think, I see it on social media all the time. Oh, I disappear for 6 months and then come back around and, you know, friends just like pick up where they left off. Within reason. Sometimes life happens. People go through, I went through all kind of stuff in my business, but I'm still a consistent person. I am still a consistent person. I will still check in and be like, hey, how are you doing? How's life? Hey, I know I haven't reached out in 3 months, but you were on my mind. Like, addressing the elephant in the room. One of the things that I said recently in one of my mentee calls with my mentorship is, if there's an elephant in the room, that doesn't feel safe to me. If there's an elephant in the room and we are pretending it is not there, that doesn't create emotional safety. If we're acting like, what elephant? Elephant? That doesn't feel emotionally safe. If we're going to feel safe with each other and be honest and transparent, we have to address the elephant in the room. It may be uncomfortable, but knowing that a person can be honest with me even if it's uncomfortable, to me feels safer than pretending there's no elephant in the room. Okay, lovers, I invite you to ask yourself the following questions. Do you notice when something sounds condescending? How do you respond to that? How does it feel in your body? Do you feel a twinge of something being off? What sensation comes up when someone says something condescending? And they may say something that sounds nice, but you're like, that felt a little condescending. Do you notice when there is an undertone of jealousy or low-key competition? And again, jealousy is a natural human emotion. And if the elephant in the room is jealousy, being able to be like, girl, I am so jealous that you get to go to Italy next month. Like, what? Send me pictures. Bring me back some wine. You know what I mean? Versus acting like, oh, well, I'm going to Costa Rica, right? Like, we don't have to act. We don't have to compete. We don't have to compare. Those are things that create disconnect versus connection. Do you notice ambivalence? Do you wonder if a person actually likes you? Do you wonder if a person hates you? That's a problem. That's going to keep your nervous system in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn if you wonder if a person actually likes you. I do not want any friends where I feel like I have to question, do they even like me? Or are they friends with me because we've been friends for so long? Are they friends with me because they don't want to address the elephant in the room and they'll wait for me to end the friendship before they do it? So they're just friends with me by default. We're friends because, we used to be friends. We used to like the same things, and they'll just never end the friendship. But do they actually like who I am? Do they actually like who I've become? Do they actually like what I stand for these days? These are powerful questions. If you question if someone actually likes you, and this goes for romantic relationships too. People are in relationships with people that they compete with, that they're jealous of. And again, within reason, because like I just said, jealousy is a natural human emotion. But if it's swept under the rug, it festers and it turns into maliciousness. It turns into toxicity. It turns into resentment. So when I say my inner circle has to have self-awareness, they have to have emotional intelligence, because then I feel more comfortable that everything is out in the open and I don't have to wonder. I don't have to have my spidey senses always going, because I know if they have a problem, they'll tell me. If they feel a certain type of way, they'll tell me. And I don't have to exude energy trying to figure it out or dissecting what my intuition just picked up, because they're just direct. If I have a problem, I'm going to tell you. If I'm jealous, I'm going to tell you. If there's an elephant in the room, I'm going to address it, period. I know I got a little worked up. So one of the things that I'm working on is addressing these really hard topics without holding back, while also being mindful. And it's not always easy to find that sweet spot. So I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Also, share this episode with someone that you know will gain value from it, because I think that it's important that we have these conversations. We start to peel the layers back, because so many people feel disconnected in this world. So many people feel alone in this world when we have social media and we have more access to people now than ever. So why is it that we feel not seen, not heard, disconnected? Like we don't really truly have support, yet we're surrounded by so many people. There's some problems. And again, I like to address the elephant in the room. So here we are, ambivalence, a lack of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is a learned skill. We don't just come out the womb with emotional intelligence. And a lot of us weren't taught emotional intelligence growing up, because a lot of how we were raised is based in control, manipulation, and fear. So the programming wasn't based in emotional intelligence. It's something that we have to learn, choose to learn and adapt and integrate in our adult lives. And I say integrate because we have to actually apply it. We could read the self-help books, we can listen to the podcast, but we have to actually integrate it. And then the next step is truly embody it. And that is what I work on with my clients, and also what we focus on with the Healthy Love Healing Method. So I have a couple of things that supports this topic in the Healthy Love Healing app. Identifying what you need in your inner circle. Are you around people that feel ambivalent, that feel toxic, that feel like they're low-key jealous or competing or condescending? That is going to keep your nervous system on high alert. You're going to stay in fight, flight, or freeze. You can do all the journaling, all the inner work, all the sound baths, but if you go right back into a situation where your nervous system is constantly on guard, it's going to be really hard to repair your nervous system. And our health at this point depends on our nervous systems repairing and regulating. So again, just because you love someone doesn't mean that they are good for your nervous system. We have to surround ourselves more with people that feel safe, that feel nurturing, that feel supportive. And sometimes we don't have those people right away, but doing the inner work and creating your inner sanctuary, creating your external sanctuary where you have more peace and serenity and support and nurturing, then you will start to attract more supportive people into your space. And when your nervous system starts to let its guard down, you'll notice the difference and you'll want more of that feeling. But we have to create that, and it does take time. So I do believe in healing at a pace that's safe for our nervous system, because sometimes the people that are most harmful to our nervous systems are the people that we love the most. It could be family, it could be close friends, it could be our partners, it could be our bosses. And sometimes we can't walk away easily. So it is a process. And if this is landing and people are like feeling this, I just want you to know you are not alone. And I've been through it. It's not easy. And I also see it every single day in my studio. People will abandon their healing journey to hold on to the people that they love. But they're sacrificing their mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And when you are ready to be self-loyal and cultivate healthy connections in your life, the tools are there. It's not always easy, but it is worth it. Thank you so much for bearing with me as I talked about something that was really hard to talk about and articulate because it's such a nuanced thing. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to hear your feedback, so you can comment below or send me a DM on Instagram. That's where I hang out the most. And again, share this episode with someone that will find value in it. And until next time, reminding you, don't shrink for the comfort of others, and you are worthy of healthy love. This girl. I'm going to have bloopers on the video because you are so silly.
Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.